Is your room number 186?
Yes, it is.
I imagine you know that zombie takeout is not permitted in the rooms or any other area of the hotel.
Yes.
And yet it has been brought to my attention that you continue to do it. Hello and welcome to Zombie Takeout, the B movie and cult movie show. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got quite a bit to do, which is probably for the best given what happened with this week's movie. First off, I want to mention that I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse this past weekend. Absolutely highly recommend it. Probably my favorite Marvel movie, close second, or maybe a close second to not Daredevil, Black Panther. Brilliant film. I can't say too much about it because it's all spoilers, but I was very happy to see Miles Morales get a movie finally. They changed his origin story a little bit, but it works better. Again, highly recommend it, particularly if you're a Spider-Man fan or an animation fan or just a superhero fan. Also, today the trailer for Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker came out. It's apparently going to be standalone. It's not going to fit into the Zack Snyder films.
Okay.
Looks fascinating, and just the fact that it's Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker is fascinating.
It's a Joker, no Batman, right?
There is a scene. There's a kid. It takes place in the 70s.
Oh.
There's a scene with this little kid. It's been speculated that the kid is Bruce Wayne.
Oh.
But it is pre-Batman.
Now, if they mashed up, like the Johnny Cash story with the Joker story, you'd have me. But yeah,
it's been a lot of the reviews and the reactions I was seeing mentioned Taxi Driver.
Okay.
It's very Scorsese.
Yeah, I've been enduring superhero fatigue, and just
yeah.
No, I saw the beginning of Into the Spider-Verse. See, I see a lot of the beginnings of movies when I'm over at my nephew's place, and then it's bedtime for him, and I miss. We just don't finish the movie.
It doesn't get really interesting until maybe a half hour in.
I'm trying to remember how far we made it into it. I mean, it was, I saw where it was going though. It looked nice. It looked all right.
Did old crotchety, almost all chubby Peter Parker show up?
Yes.
Okay, so you started to see where it was going.
Yeah, I could see where it was going.
You didn't get the real payoff of that angle.
I think I forgot how many times we were into the loop. We were a few times into the loop.
Did any of I'll be careful how I word this. Did any of the others show up?
Yes.
Okay. So you were into the good part then.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've got some feedback from Bodo on Twitter, of course. He said, "Lobster, why?"
Did he make it through?
Yep. Well, we'll see.
Okay.
Lobster, why? This movie was so hipster, I almost puked. After I finished, I went down a rabbit hole, and someone in reviewing said something about a movie called But I'm a Cheerleader, a 1995 movie free on Tubi, a fun movie, more enjoyable to me than Lobster. I've seen But I'm a Cheerleader. It is a lot of fun.
I think, yeah. Was that Julie Brown?
It's Natasha Lyonne.
Natasha Lyonne, okay.
Really fun movie. We should probably review it at some point.
Because I thought Julie Brown did something like that.
He also said, just real quickly, he also recommended an anime called Assassination Classroom on Hulu. I'm going to have to check that out. And he suggested a movie called 400 Days for our 400th episode. I don't think we've settled on a 400th episode.
No. Oh, I thought we did, and now I can't remember what we settled on.
Yeah, it might be the same for both of us.
Were we going to do The Godfather? No, I don't think we were going to do The Godfather.
I know I suggested Phantom Menace, but I think you shot that down pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, we kind of did macro reviews of the prequels.
Yeah, true.
Well, a while back.
And I've complained about them enough. But yeah, we'll have to think about 400 Days. It's about astronauts in a simulation underground where things just get weird.
My Star Wars fatigue is actually wearing off, but the superhero fatigue is full on.
That's interesting
So many superheroes.
because my superhero fatigue, I went through the superhero fatigue from about the first Avengers up until about a year ago, actually, almost a year ago when I finally dove back into the MCU.
It
And
is so much worse now, though. It's so much more saturated now than back then.
yeah, but I mean, I'm kind of over that. I dove back in. I'm into it now. But I spent however many years.
Obviously.
How,
Wait, wait, you suggested we do Batman this week. I was like, what? What?
well,
More
and I
superheroes?
suggest that because Saturday was Batman's 80th anniversary, um, and some of the animated stuff is brilliant. I want to see Killing Joke,
If
just to see how far they went with that.
if we did do a Batman movie now, it would be an animated movie. Probably Killing Joke, yeah.
I've realized that I think superheroes work a lot better in animation, and I'm saying that as an animation geek, of course.
I would agree with that, definitely. I mean, right, and Burton, of course, really brought it to life for
Oh,
the
yeah.
first time. But man, they're for Shazam's advertising, they're actually using the joke, the greatest superhero movie in the past month.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, it's not really a joke because we are getting one a month now. It's insane.
But my superhero fatigue ended almost a year ago. I got over it. But I'm fully into Star Wars fatigue. I really don't care about Episode 9. And I enjoyed Solo. I loved Solo and TLJ.
I think Solo got me back. I mean, I haven't watched the sequel trilogy yet.
Mhm.
The last two to catch me up for 9 again. But yeah, maybe it's because I haven't watched the animated series.
Yeah, I think that's maybe it because I loved the animated series. And well, the only real complaint with the big complaint you had about Solo is explained in the animated series.
Yeah.
So that is why I was kind of more on board for that. Anyway, on to some news. This is from Nerdist. Taika Waititi to write and direct Time Bandits series. Deadline reports that Thor Ragnarok director, also director of What We Do in the
We do the
Shadows.
shadows. Have you seen the show yet? Because I haven't.
I have not.
It started
It has started.
last
Okay.
week, I think.
Oh, okay. Not much to catch up on. I gotta get on that.
Yeah,
Um,
same here.
is joining the Time Bandit series that is currently under development at Apple. In addition to penning and directing the pilot, Waititi will also be an executive producer alongside the film's original writer and director Terry Gilliam, as well as Dan Halstead, who did something called People of Earth.
The two of those teaming up.
Yeah, yeah.
People of Earth. If that's the show I'm thinking of like Wyatt Cenac,
Okay.
that was pretty cool too.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't think I saw a few episodes of it, but what I did see, I liked.
Now, I was really iffy on Time Bandits when we reviewed it. I was not
Oh
a
yeah,
fan.
it doesn't hold up.
No,
I don't think.
but I mean, and I notoriously hated Ragnarok. I tapped that after a half hour.
Oh yeah.
It's one of only two Marvel MCU movies I haven't seen or I haven't seen in full. I tapped out of that one after a half hour, and I just didn't bother with Ant-Man because I can't stand Paul Rudd. But so he's iffy on that. But I absolutely loved What We Do in the Shadows, of course.
Yeah.
So Waititi and Gilliam, like you
That's a
mentioned,
great team.
yeah.
Why
So
hasn't that happened before
yeah,
now?
I really want to see the series now.
Yeah.
And without any further ado, on to this week's movie, which is from 2015, The Lobster. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Quirky Indie Films. Stop. Just fucking stop.
And also brought to you by City Eye Doctor. Blind one eye, get the other blinded for 50% off.
And before we get into the summary proper, I just want to say, right off the top, in the immortal words of Freddie Mercury, after I think I calculated it to 394 movies as of this week, it finally happened in the immortal words of Freddie Mercury. I tapped the fuck out. After an hour, I just couldn't take the torture anymore. I absolutely agree with Bodo.
All right. So we have, well, it begins in a very odd way. It's
a woman driving a car.
A woman driving a car. She's just driving. They're focusing on her. She suddenly gets out and just I couldn't tell which animal it was she
I
shot
think it was a
exactly.
donkey.
Yeah. And it was just this weird, unexpected violence. And then there's kind of a sadness while the other animal walks over and checks on the slain animal. And then what you learn later, I don't even know how that ties back in, like who that was she
Someone she was
killed.
pissed off at, I guess. Maybe an
Yeah.
ex.
Um, so then it goes to this man who I think he was a divorcee,
Mhm.
and he's getting enrolled into the what at first you think it's just kind of a couple like a singles program, but then they start using like the language of prison, and then they start using the language of like, well, if you make it through, and you're like, wait, what? And then it goes full on like, I don't know if this was before or after Kevin Smith's Walrus movie, but it goes into
I think it
it,
might have been a little after.
the deal is if he does not find a partner at this place, he gets turned into the animal of his
Mhm.
choice. Um,
And he chose
and
a lobster, hence the title.
he chooses a lobster, and of course, because he isn't that bright.
Well, it is a painless death, apparently, according to everybody who's ever cooked lobster.
that I don't know. I've seen crabs get cooked, and I'm looking up the Walrus movie. Forget Tusk. That's what it was called.
Yeah, Tusk.
Before or after 2015? It's oh yeah, it was 2014, right?
I had a
The year
feeling it was a
before
little
this.
bit before. I mean, it's not early enough before to have been for the lobster to have ripped it off, really.
And really, why would you want to rip that off?
Well, yeah, but it is well after a movie or the origin a movie that we've reviewed, and of course the play that movie is based on, Rhinoceros by UNESCO.
Oh, was it based off that
I mean,
Rhinoceros?
it not necessarily based on Rhinoceros, but it certainly borrows from it heavily.
Yeah, but anyway, so this person, at first, you feel like you're gonna feel really bad for him because I mean he's lost, his spouse, and he's trying, and that evokes sympathy. But you notice as they quietly move through the plot that he isn't actually really looking for someone. It's not until a while in where he actually even starts scheming to at least make it look like he's found someone when he hooks up with the girl without feelings.
Mhm.
And
Brouhaha.
and when that of course goes to shit in a most spectacular way. And
Or no,
he
Fred Bruca is from. I'm going for the Mel Brooks reference.
oh right. And so then he escapes because there's this group of other people that live outside the hotel that are hunted by them, called the loners. And you expect that when he finally makes it to them, that there's going to be some sort of, you know, oasis,
Mm-hmm.
some sort of freedom, some sort of, because the one thing at the hotel is they are on lockdown. It is a prison. They're tortured. It's yeah, the toaster seat. I was kind of thinking of tapping out at that.
And just to clarify, the inmates of the hotel hunt the loners.
Yes, the inmates of the hotel are given tranquilizer guns and hunt the loners. But when he reaches the loners, you then quickly realize that he is just in an oppressive place, if not even more so than he was in the hotel. And right, they're very brutal too. And this is where you tapped
Mm-hmm.
out, because like one of the punishments one of the couple endured because they were caught kissing, because of course the loner is enforced loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
where the other is enforced coupling. And you what was the punishment? It was the red kiss or something.
Red kiss, yes.
It was something with like a razor
On
to
the
the
left,
mouth.
yeah.
And they're just two sad sacks with their bandage over their
Kind of a
mouths.
Glasgow grin, sort of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so after you tapped out, they he of course finally meets a woman that he likes, um, but really it's just because she's nearsighted too. He's nearsighted, she's nearsighted, so they can be a couple. But they have to be a couple in secret because they're amongst the loners. And it gets into this really strange thing where they have to go into the city for some reason. I didn't quite follow why they had to go into the city, but they had to go into the city. And they're when you're in the city, you have to pretend you're in a couple. And so they literally just get to the point where they're making out in front of pretty much everybody, but trying to just claim that they're doing it for the cover, for the story. They plan to escape the loners and move to the city as a couple when, just as they're about to do this, they find the narrator's journal of all those things that she's been saying in the movie.
Okay, so the annoying narrator did actually serve a purpose.
That they find her journal of all the things she'd written, all the things she'd been talking about as a narrator to us. And the voice of the narrator, of course, changes to one of the loners, and it's him like reading out of her journal to the leader. So they make our hero dig his own grave. She makes him lie in it and put dirt on him, and just you don't want dogs to get you, of course. And then they trick his girlfriend into going into the city. They're going to correct her nearsightedness. It was a surprise procedure. Instead, the eye doctor blinds her. They also had a scene before where they go back to the hotel, and you think they're going to kill people in the hotel. They've got like real guns. They're ready to go. When it turns out they're just there to ruin their relationships. Like he volunteers to go to the yacht to get his friend that had a limp, and you're thinking like, well, it's odd that he would go to kill him. And instead he just walks into the yacht and said, he doesn't really have a nosebleed.
My hand feels so heavy.
he's just faking it. He's telling, he explains it. They play some mind games with the other couples that are running the camp, to break up their relationship, and they just leave. So they blind her, and so he's nearsighted and she's blind. What are they to do? They escape anyway. He decides, it's not worth living with the loners. They escape. They go all the way back into the city, and I will spoil the end because the end doesn't really resolve anything anyway.
No.
Their solution is he's going to blind himself,
so that they once again have something in common.
So
I read the plot summary.
It ends with him taking a steak knife, going into the men's room, bracing himself for it, aiming the knife at his eye. He even he gets some paper towels and stuff in his mouth because he realizes he's going to scream. And the end shot is her sitting at the table, blind, waiting for him to come back, and it goes to black, and that's it. So we don't know if he actually went through with it or not. Oh, I guess I would say hilarity ensued, but you tapped out.
Yeah. It's like baby's first absurdity. This is absurdity for dummies.
It is a light absurdity. Yeah.
It's so obvious. And it's interesting that this is basically all about, the way single people are looked down on in our society. And one of us has been with his partner for 25 years. The other is chronically single. So it's an the dichotomy here is interesting given the subject matter. But It's like somebody saw an Ionesco and Wes Anderson and Python and just decided to take out the duct tape.
It is very Python. I mean, there was a skit where like releasing like accountants in the wild,
Yeah,
where there's it's very reminiscent of that because they're coming out when they go to the city. The loners, they wear business suits and
right.
stuff,
Yeah.
and they're coming out of the woods in those and walking along with it.
And there is
So
just so much that's Python
yeah.
in this, but it's poorly applied Python, poorly applied quirky indie bullshit straight from Wes Anderson, who does it well, and nothing against Wes
Well,
Anderson.
yeah, I think
But
Anderson is so much more. So
he has
much
a
more.
heart.
Yeah, he has so much more of a touch. This, I don't think it has a heart for a reason. I think
Get it. I get the jokes. They just don't work for me.
I don't know if it's a joke or not though. To me, and maybe I'm looking at this through 2019 eyes rather than
Mhm.
2015 eyes. That I mean, you kind of get the view. Speaking of fascism and or even I was thinking maybe that it's communism and fascism, like kind of on
I
both sides of the coin.
I think you're reading way too much into it.
Ah, a lot of it is
And I
about,
understand the temptation, but
but a lot of it was about stripping away the emotions and just being superficial and just taking, you
the
know,
it's about all of the pressure that single people have to pair up
well,
because
the first half
society tells
was
you you're worthless unless you pair up. And
right,
the loners are everybody who are all the single people who try to fuck with their friends' relationships because misery loves company.
right. So it was the other side of the coin where the loners were you can't be
Right.
you have to be remain single or you're I mean
One of us, one of us.
exactly. It was both, and I think you were hoping for some relief at that point for the loners, instead to find that they were, if not worse than the hotel.
I will say I've never really taken Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell plays the main character. I've never taken him seriously, or I haven't really been able to since Daredevil, and I this hasn't helped. It was a real shame to see John C. Riley and Ben Whishaw in this though, because they're so good, and they're so wasted.
Yeah, in fact, they don't really say what happened to John C. Riley exactly. I mean,
After they
he's
got burnt. He didn't really show up after he got the toaster scene. I thought from what.
he comes hunting for them,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, I mean, he gets tranquilized, I think.
Mhm.
It's hard to tell whether someone's tranquilized or dead. They didn't really,
Right.
explain all that clearly. So I don't know whether he was dead or whether he was tranquilized.
Mhm.
But they just leave him on the floor of the woods without with just his boxers and t-shirt.
Well,
They take his clothes.
what I saw, everybody was tranked. Nobody was actually killed.
Yeah.
Maybe they're killed later.
Well, they're turned into animals later.
Well, yeah, 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 of course. The description of how they're turned into animals was disturbing. I thought it was
Oh
going to
yeah.
be some kind of magic black box. They actually get into like the details about of the surgery that turns them into animals.
But they never confirm if that's actually the case or not. You know what?
Yeah, someone heard a rumor about it.
Right. The more I thought about it, I was like, they're not fucking actually turning them into animals. They're just killing them and telling them to turn into animals.
Probably.
And by the way, Shetland pony is probably the best choice you could make.
Mhm.
Because no one's going to fucking kill a Shetland pony. No one's going to eat a Shetland pony.
Mm.
Be a Shetland pony.
I have to say, I did appreciate the commentary on bi-erasure when he checks into the hotel because he's saying that he's straight, but he's had an experience with a man in college, and
Yeah.
he asks if bi is an option, and they said no, it's too complicated, or there were complications. Nice commentary on bi-erasure, and in the beginning, I think the whole commentary on the pressure to partner was interesting. They just went nowhere with it. It's just so fucking heavy-handed.
Yeah, they went into this total. This is probably the most dystopian movie we've done, considering we've done
True, true.
like seven. We did 6 dystopian movies leading up to this.
And we did fucking 1984 a couple
Yeah.
years ago.
Well, right. This kind of takes 1984 to a whole micromanaged level.
Yeah, yeah. And also John's limp, Ben Wishaw's character's limp,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, there's a joke there I'm not going to go for, being his defining characteristic. The whole defining characteristic thing was just cringy because it's you get known for that one thing. You think when you're trying to date, there's that one thing that everybody's gonna call you out on.
Right. It was kind of confusing for the most part to what they
Mhm.
were getting at with that. Like,
Oh, the other one that I forgot to mention earlier with the duct tape analogy, true stories. There's a lot of true stories in this.
I can see that it has the same very deadpan
Yeah.
delivery that they're going for.
Why was the first hunting scene in slow motion with like the opera music? It was like John Woo indie.
Yeah, it was that motherfucker was diving. It was very Matrix, actually.
True, true, yeah. And the moment I actually know the moment it pissed me off. They're on the bus and the one woman is trying to flirt with him, and the narrator just repeats everything she just fucking said.
I think that was kind of I'm not sure exactly why they did that, but I thought it was kind of funny.
I did also think that the main trio, John Riley, Ben Whishaw, and Colin Farrell, were very childish or childlike, I should say. Like they actually moved and kind of spoke like children.
Well, right, and the bus scene actually is kind of where I was getting at. Like, wait, why is he not even trying? What the fuck? It was kind of it was irksome because of that to me. That he was just
Because she was
making
literally throwing it.
excuses.
She couldn't have thrown herself at him more overtly.
Right. Well, because she doesn't fucking want to. She's acting like how anybody
Yeah,
would act in that situation. Of
doesn't want to die.
I don't want to get turned into a fucking animal or killed or whatever
Right.
bullshit they were feeding them. She doesn't want any of that to happen to her. So she's like, all right, I'm whatever. I'm willing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much, if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to kill myself.
And she does. Jumps out a window, just as she
Yeah.
said she would. And he sees this. He's coming back from golfing and walks straight over to Frau Bruja, or was it? What's the name of the movie? Frau Bruja? Cloris Leachman's character in Young Frankenstein.
I I think like the translation is glue or something, which
Yeah,
is why the whole thing was like the horse would
yeah, yeah.
neigh every
Okay.
time.
But he walks over to her and tries flirting with her right after this woman jumped out of a fucking window and is
Well,
on
right,
there bleeding.
but that was when he decided that was his play to
Mhm.
get out of this. Finally, he decided it was easier to fake not having emotions than it was to have
Right.
emotions.
You're
So the
someone
woman
to feel of them for, right?
So the woman without emotions was the one that
Mhm.
that he was going to try to couple with. And of course, what better way to do it? There's someone here. I don't care.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was kind of wondering like why he wasn't trying to save her life when she was, choking, only to find that it was her just fucking with him.
Yeah. To see if
And
he showed any emotion.
and because he showed no emotion, he could be the one for her.
Right. And then after their first night together, she kicks she kicks his dog to death and the dog who was previously his
His
brother.
brother, yeah.
She actually literally kicks him to death. You see her thigh or calf covered in blood. He goes into the bathroom. You see the dead dog in a pool of blood. He doesn't react until he gets to the bathroom, of course.
Right, he's trying to keep he's still trying to keep his emotions in check. And yeah, he just loses it when he sees his brother there on the floor.
And she catches him and she decides she's going to turn him in. He tranks her, and that's when he escapes.
Well, yeah, they get this bizarre
The maid saves him.
chase fight scene. Yeah, the maid turns out to be, in with the loners, kind of their inside person.
Oh yes, and also for the inmates, those who haven't paired up yet, they have to, according to the rules of the hotel, have to be serviced by the maid staff.
They're
And I
kind of
mean sexually.
they're kind of tested, but they're not actually serviced.
Well,
like they're
sort
they
of. They're dry humped by the main staff.
right. Well, not to completion, just to see how they respond, and to make sure they respond
Right.
earlier, to try to encourage them hooking up. So it is a horror movie, really, if you come down to it in the end. That's why one of the names I had was Merchant Ivory Hostel. Because it is kind of like a Merchant Ivory film if they were to have directed Hostel.
Yeah. And the last really cringy joke before I tapped out, I think, what the last straw for me, but he gets to the loners, and the leader, who turns out to be the narrator, is telling him, how you can't hook up with each other, but you can have conversations. They can only dance by themselves, and she says that's why we only play electronic music. That was it. That and the red kiss scene.
So let's see. So yeah, obviously that would be the end of your notes then.
It's like, you can carry on with yours.
But yeah, you kind of notice that there was too much time left when he's in the grave, so it really didn't work for the suspense of him being killed there. You knew he was gonna get out because there was still fucking 24 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just the madness of blinding him, going to blind himself. Like they can't bring her to back to an eye doctor to correct her vision.
It was a commentary on lying that you have something in common with the person you want to get with. And pretending to be something you're not to get with someone else. They just push that to a disgustingly obvious satire.
Well, it's the shallowness. The only way you could be with someone is if you have a clone of yourself.
Right.
I think a lot of this speaks about tribalism too. Which is, probably the greatest problem we're facing.
Okay.
In our time. So I saw where they were coming from on this, and the fact that they leave it empty, or they leave it, unresolved, whether he actually does it. I mean, either way is shitty. It's like, like how shallow do you have to be to fucking do that to yourself just to have the relationship, or how shallow would you have to be to leave the person that you love just because she's blind?
Yeah.
I mean, either way is a really shitty thing. Only one is shitty without self-mutilation, which I guess that wins the day for me. Yeah. So they also leave, like, what happened, like, they don't really explain what happens to the limper. I guess we assume that the limper is his relationship was destroyed by that.
Well, the other thing I had here is they have this bit about how, if you're having any kind of relationship problems, we'll give you kids.
Right. which I thought was probably the funniest joke of the movie, actually, because they're like, that usually solves the problem. It's like, really? Do tell. But yeah, it's, how fascism really thrives in this environment that they're talking about. Tribalism, lack of any real emotion, and just the painfully superficial. So that's my notes, pretty much.
I don't think sequels and remakes are really necessary.
Sequels and remakes. A sequel, I don't know. Let's see. They're both either blind.
The sequel would be about 5 minutes. Did he do it or not?
Yeah. A remake. I don't know. I think this is a once in a one of a kind thing.
Yeah. On the brains.
On the brains.
Obviously, if I didn't finish it, I'm giving it a 0.
Well, there are parts I liked, and there are parts I didn't. It was a little too tortury for my tastes, but I think it really fits the time. So I'm going 3.
Okay. And what have you learned?
The breaststroke really does help with the spine.
And I learned that I'll actually tap out of a movie if it's bad enough.
Does this mean are we near our end? Have you been burnt out? Has this broken you, John?
No, well, no, this movie has not. I've been in yeah, you might be able to tell I'm a bit of a mood tonight. My TMJ's been acting up for like a week,
Oh,
so I'm in a bit of a state. And so that did not help my opinion of the movie.
I mean, there were times where I felt like tapping out too. Honestly, I mean, the hand in the toaster.
Uh,
I was kind of like, do I really want to watch this? Especially, I honestly, if they had gone to the Kevin Smith land about specifics of turning people into animals, I might have tapped out
hmm,
too. And it looked like they were actually going to go there when the couple when Trebluka or whatever when they were fighting, and it looked like they were really going to go there. And when they didn't, I was just kind of like, oh, thank God. All right, I'll. Or I could have just been glad that I wasn't watching a superhero movie.
uh. All right, that's it for The Lobster, thankfully. Until next time, when we'll be reviewing The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. We've been putting
Holy
that one
shit!
off for quite a while.
This is quite. This is. This is the old timey record needle scratching.
It's the next one we had on the list.
This is like, how far apart can we get? Because this is like
Good.
a hokey 70s
Mhm.
crime movie.
Until then, of course, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there
There
you
you
are.
are.